Alex's big plans. Blueprints, a sprawling cartography of hope and hard numbers, covered Alex's mahogany desk. Harmony Glen, a name whispered with doubt, spread out before him, overlaid with architectural dreams and stark financial forecasts. His fingertip landed on the community center, currently a study in decay, soon to be a vibrant hub with an Olympic-sized pool and a climbing wall that scraped the sky. 20 floors below, the city's thrum faded into a background drone as he leaned back in his chair. Harmony Glen, 847 souls. A median income that stung. Potential? Bursting at the seams. Skepticism met him at every turn. You're a predator, Sterling, not a saint, they'd scoffed. But Alex saw past the surface. He saw a town on the precipice of rebirth, a community with the fortitude to hoist itself up, if only given a chance. He believed. He always rooted for the underdog. A buzz from his phone. Harmony Glen meeting, 9 a.m. sharp. A smile tugged at his lips. Tomorrow, the gamble began. A sudden wave of memory, a stark contrast to the cool steel and glass of his office. He saw a different space, the cramped, flour-dusted room above his parents' bakery in Queens. Long hours were logged there, hunched over books, the yeasty perfume of baking bread a constant, reassuring embrace. He recalled the mounting debts, the fear that clouded his parents' eyes when they believed he wasn't looking. That bakery, that struggle, fueled his ambition. Alex Sterling, CEO of Sterling Enterprises, hadn't always worn this mantle. Once he was simply Alex, the baker's son, the boy with patched shoes and a burning hunger to achieve, not just for personal gain, but for the sake of his family, his community. His triumphs weren't just balance sheets and closed deals. They were a testament to his origins and a dedication to leveraging his position for the benefit of others. He swiveled back, drawing a hefty folder close. Harmony Glen, due diligence. He dissected every detail, every digit, every possible snag. He knew the tightrope he walked. The town was mired in economic stagnation, its infrastructure crumbling, its residents wary. Decades of broken promises had bred distrust. But Alex wasn't just another developer looking to swoop in. He was an investor with vision, an innovator driven by purpose. He intended to invest time, cultivate trust, and entrench himself within the community. He envisioned a renaissance, new businesses blossoming, jobs sprouting, a school system thriving. He imagined Harmony Glen as a beacon of rural resurgence, proof of what could be accomplished with foresight, investment, and a genuine desire to uplift. He pushed away, stretching the kinks from his muscles. Time to prepare. He retrieved a leather duffel from the closet, the scent of tanned hide, a comforting reassurance. He tossed in a few shirts, jeans, and his weathered work boots. He wouldn't impress them with tailored suits and polished chrome. He needed them to see him as one of their own, or at least someone who understood. As he zipped the bag, his gaze fell upon a framed photograph. His parents, beaming with pride before their bakery, their faces etched with hope. He smiled. He wouldn't fail them, nor would he fail Harmony Glen. A glance at his watch showed it was nearing midnight. Sleep beckoned. Tomorrow was pivotal. He extinguished the lights, the city lights twinkling outside his expansive window, a million pinpricks of possibility. He hoped he could deliver on his promise. Harmony Glen depended on it. Welcome to Harmony Glen. The sign read, Harmony Glen, next exit. Alex signaled, the low growl of the rental SUV, a counterpoint to the birdsong filtering through the open windows. He'd traded the sterile comfort of his private jet for this, a drive through rolling hills painted in hues of emerald and gold. Harmony Glen was picture postcard perfect, a cluster of quaint buildings nestled in a valley that seemed to breathe serenity. He needed this. The boardroom battles, the relentless pressure to deliver, it all faded a little with each mile he put between himself and Sterling Enterprises. He remembered his own humble beginnings, the sting of rejection, the burning desire to prove himself. He wouldn't let Harmony Glen suffer the same fate he'd almost endured. He spotted the Grumbles Hotel, its faded sign hanging slightly askew. It was a two-story building of weathered wood, a porch stretching across the front, occupied by a couple of rocking chairs and a cat sunning itself with regal indifference. This was it. Stepping inside, the scent of aged wood and lavender potpourri filled his nostrils. A bell above the door jingled, announcing his arrival. Behind a high, scarred counter, a young woman with bright, eager eyes and a cascade of auburn curls smiled warmly. "Welcome to the Grumbles Hotel," she chirped, her voice a little too loud for the quiet lobby. "I am Lily Bloom. Checking in." Alex returned her smile. "Yes, I am. Sterling. Alex Sterling." Lily's eyes widened slightly. "Oh, Mr. Sterling, we've been expecting you. I have your room key right here." She fumbled under the counter, knocking over a stack of brochures that scattered across the floor. "Oops. Butterfingers today, I guess," she giggled, a high, tinkling sound that echoed in the stillness. A gruff voice interrupted from a back room. "Lily, what in tarnation are you doing back there? Sounds like a herd of elephants stampeding through a china shop." A man emerged, his face etched with deep lines of perpetual discontent. He was stout, with a fringe of gray hair circling a bald patch, and his eyes narrowed suspiciously as he took in Alex. This had to be Mr. Grumbles himself. "Grumbles," the man grunted, offering a hand that felt like dry leather. "Silas Grumbles, owner, proprietor, and general sufferer of this establishment." Alex shook his hand, noting the lack of warmth. "Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Grumbles. Though, I hope your suffering isn't too severe." Grumbles snorted. "It's a constant battle against the forces of entropy, young man. And Lily here doesn't make it any easier." He shot a disapproving glance at Lily, who was still gathering the scattered brochures, her cheeks flushed. "Now, Silas," Lily said, her voice a little subdued. "Mr. Sterling doesn't want to hear about all that. He's here to, see the town." She offered Alex a quick, nervous smile. "Room 202 is all ready for you, Mr. Sterling. It's at a lovely view of the creek." "Creek's probably dried up again," Grumbles muttered, more to himself than to Alex. "Haven't seen rain in weeks." Alex took the key from Lily. "Thank you, Miss Bloom. I appreciate it." He turned back to Grumbles. "I'm looking forward to exploring Harmony Glen. I hear it a very charming place." Grumbles raised a skeptical eyebrow. "Charming? That's one word for it. Some might say dying. Depends on your perspective, I suppose. Hope you brought your checkbook, Mr. Sterling. This town could use a miracle." Alex's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Miracles happen, Mr. Grumbles. Sometimes all it takes is a little investment." He turned and headed for the stairs, the worn wooden steps creaking under his weight. He glanced back to see Lily watching him, her expression a mixture of hope and trepidation. Grumbles was already disappearing back into the depths of the hotel, muttering something about leaky faucets and a younger generation. Alex knew then that Harmony Glen was going to be a challenge, perhaps a bigger one than he'd anticipated. But he was Sterling, and he didn't back down from a fight, especially not one worth fighting for. The black card. Alex reached into his leather wallet, the soft calfskin cool against his fingertips. He extracted the black card, its matte surface absorbing the dim light of the Grumbles Hotel reception. He slid it across the polished countertop towards Miss Lily Bloom, who was still fussing with the registration form. "Here you are," he said, offering a polite smile. He was already envisioning the hot shower and soft sheets. A good night's sleep was paramount before he started assessing Harmony Glen's situation. Miss Lily stopped humming, her pen hovering over the form. She looked up, her bright blue eyes widening slightly as she took the card. Her smile faltered for a fraction of a second before returning, perhaps a touch too bright. She picked it up, turning it over in her hands. "Oh my," she breathed, her gaze darting back to Alex's face. He maintained his easy smile, completely oblivious to her internal turmoil. The black card, a symbol of his company's success, felt heavy and cold in Miss Lily's sweaty palm. She had seen credit cards before, of course. Plenty of them. But this was different. It was stark black, devoid of the usual flamboyant logos and swirling designs. Only the raised lettering of his name and a discreet emblem in the corner distinguished it from a piece of obsidian. She had never seen anything like it. She ran a finger nervously over the smooth surface. It felt expensive. Too expensive, perhaps. A wave of nervousness washed over her. What if it was fake? She was terrible at spotting forgeries. Mr. Grumbles would be furious if she accepted a fraudulent payment. A nervous giggle escaped her lips. She clamped a hand over her mouth, her cheeks flushing a rosy pink. "This is certainly unique," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. Alex chuckled, mistaking her amusement for genuine interest. "They're not very common, I suppose." He didn't elaborate. He rarely did when it came to the details of his wealth. It made people uncomfortable, or worse, predatory. Miss Lily's eyes flickered down to the card again. The blackness seemed to deepen, reflecting the anxieties swirling within her. She imagined all the trouble she could get in. She pictured Mr. Grumbles, his face red with fury, berating her for her incompetence. Another giggle bubbled up, this one tinged with panic. She squeezed her eyes shut for a moment, trying to regain her composure. When she opened them, she saw Alex still smiling patiently, completely unaware of her internal crisis. "Is there a problem, Miss Bloom?" he asked gently, his brow furrowing slightly. "Problem? Oh, there was a problem. A big, black, potentially fraudulent problem." She swallowed hard, her throat suddenly dry. No problem at all," she chirped, her voice a little too high-pitched. She fumbled with the card, tried to insert it into the ancient credit card machine that sat on the counter. It jammed. She jiggled it, her hands shaking. Still jammed. "Just having a little trouble with the machine," she explained, forcing another giggle. "It's temperamental." Alex watched her struggle, a hint of concern creeping into his expression. He was used to efficiency, to seamless transactions. This quaint inefficiency, while charming in a way, was starting to wear on his patience. He just wanted to get to his room. Miss Lily finally managed to dislodge the card. She examined it closely, as if searching for some hidden clue, some telltale sign that would reveal its true nature. She sniffed it delicately, as if expecting to detect the scent of counterfeit money. "It's very black," she observed, stating the obvious. Another giggle escaped, this one bordering on hysterical. Alex's smile tightened. He was beginning to suspect that Miss Lily wasn't simply charmed by his unusual card. Something else was going on. "Perhaps I could just pay with cash?" he offered, already reaching for his wallet again. Miss Lily's eyes widened in alarm. "Oh no need for that," she insisted, grabbing his hand to stop him. Her touch was surprisingly strong. "I'll figure it out. Just give me a moment." She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. She had to pull herself together. She was the face of the Grumbles Hotel, and she couldn't afford to fall apart in front of a guest, especially one with such a unique credit card. She took the black card once more, held it up to the light, and giggled. Laughter and doubt. The sound, high and bright, sliced through the oppressive gloom of the Grumbles Hotel lobby. Miss Lily Bloom, usually as quiet as a church mouse, was actually laughing. Alex Sterling, mortified, felt his ears burn. He hadn't meant to cause such a reaction with his Centurion card, but the sheer, unadulterated amusement radiating from Miss Lily was excruciating. He shuffled his feet, the polished toe of his Italian shoe scuffing the already worn rug. The laughter, however, wasn't dying down. It bubbled up again, a fresh wave of mirth washing over him. It's just so black," she finally gasped, clutching her chest. And the little gladiator. That was enough. He was already regretting his decision to stop in Harmony Glen. Maybe the deal wasn't worth this level of humiliation. He began to gather his briefcase. A new sound joined the laughter, a low, gravelly chuckle that sent a shiver down Alex's spine. It was the sound of someone gargling with rusty nails. Mr. Grumbles. He emerged from the shadowy depths behind the reception desk, a figure carved from granite and disapproval. His already stooped posture seemed even more pronounced, drawn forward by the irresistible allure of what? Alex wasn't sure he wanted to find out. "What's all this caterwauling then, Lily?" Mr. Grumbles rasped, his eyes, magnified by thick spectacles, fixed on Alex. Sounds like a flock of geese got loose in here. Miss Lily, flustered, tried to compose herself. Oh, Mr. Grumbles, I'm so sorry. This is Mr. Sterling. He's checking in. She gestured weakly toward the black card, still lying on the counter. Mr. Grumbles squinted at the card, then back at Alex, a slow, knowing smile spreading across his face. It was not a pleasant smile. Well, what have we here? A high roller in Harmony Glen. Don't see that every day. He picked up the card, turning it over in his gnarled hands. Black, you say? And with a Roman soldier on it? Fancy. Must be important. He paused, his gaze lingering on Alex's tailored suit. Though I reckon that suit cost more than this whole darn hotel. Alex felt a flush creep up his neck. He hated being the center of attention, especially when the attention was laced with thinly veiled mockery. The card is simply a method of payment, he said, trying to keep his voice even. I assure you, I can't afford the room. Mr. Grumbles let out another rusty chuckle. Afford it? I'm sure you can, son. But can you afford the company? He winked, a gesture that somehow managed to be both lewd and condescending. Miss Lily, her face a mask of discomfort, tugged at Mr. Grumbles' sleeve. Mr. Grumbles, please. Mr. Sterling is a guest. He waved her away with a dismissive flick of his wrist. A guest with a fancy card and an even fancier suit. I haven't seen anything like it since, well, never. Makes you wonder what brings a city slicker like him to our humble little town. His gaze locked onto Alex's, a challenge in his eyes. Alex clenched his jaw. He was used to dealing with difficult people, but Mr. Grumbles was a special breed. He decided to cut his losses. Perhaps Harmony Glen isn't quite what I'm looking for, he said, reaching for his briefcase. I'll find accommodations elsewhere. Miss Lily gasped. Oh, Mr. Sterling, please don't go. We would love to have you stay. She shot a pleading look at Mr. Grumbles, who simply shrugged. Suit yourself, Mr. Grumbles said, his voice dripping with indifference. Plenty of other hotels around, though none quite as authentic as the Grumbles Hotel, I reckon. Alex picked up his card, the smooth, cool surface a small comfort in the face of the old man's hostility. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of the billions of dollars riding on this deal. He couldn't let a grumpy hotel owner derail him. Not yet, anyway. I think I'll stay, Alex said, his voice firmer this time. Just for one night. He looked directly at Mr. Grumbles, just to see what Harmony Glen has to offer. Mr. Grumbles' smile widened, revealing a set of surprisingly yellow teeth. That's the spirit, son. Give us a chance to impress you. Though I wouldn't get your hopes up too high. A moment of reflection. Alex felt the heat crawl up his neck, prickling his ears. The muffled snickers still echoed in his head as he plucked the black card from Mr. Grumbles' pudgy fingers. He mumbled a strained, my apologies, and turned, nearly tripping over a floral-patterned ottoman in his haste to escape. The lobby's forced cheerfulness, the tinkling piano music, the cloying scent of potpourri, suddenly felt oppressive. He needed air. He pushed through the heavy oak doors and stumbled onto the porch, the evening chill a welcome slap to his overheated face. Harmony Glen at dusk possessed a quiet beauty that was easily missed in the harsh light of day. The manicured lawns softened under the twilight's brush, the distant Blue Ridge Mountains fading into hazy silhouettes. Fireflies blinked into existence, tiny beacons in the deepening gloom. He leaned against a weathered porch post, the rough wood grounding him. Why was he doing this? The image of the Harmony Glen brochure flashed in his mind. Rolling green hills, a championship golf course, luxury villas, and a revitalized town square bustling with boutiques and farm-to-table restaurants. The vision he had presented to his board, the vision that had secured the $2. $8 billion investment. He closed his eyes, trying to recapture the confidence he felt then. This wasn't just about money. It was about legacy, about building something that would last, something that would benefit the community. Harmony Glen was more than just a resort. It was a chance to breathe new life into a forgotten corner of the world. He opened his eyes. The reality, however, was Mr. Grumbles and his smug pronouncements, his archaic payment systems, and his blatant disdain. He thought of the countless hours his team had spent poring over market research, demographic studies, and architectural plans. He remembered the impassioned speeches he had given, convincing investors that Harmony Glen was a sure thing, a golden opportunity. And now, here he was, humiliated over a credit card transaction. He fished his phone out of his pocket, the cool metal a comfort against his trembling hand. He stared at the screen, his thumb hovering over the call button for Amelia. He could pull the plug, walk away, cut his losses, however embarrassing, and find another project, another town to revitalize. But the image of the faded storefronts in Harmony Glen's town square flashed through his mind. The boarded-up windows, the tired faces of the locals he'd met during his preliminary visits. They were counting on him, counting on Sterling Enterprises to bring jobs, opportunity, hope. He lowered his hand. No, he wouldn't let Mr. Grumbles, or a momentary embarrassment, derail his vision. He would just need a new approach. Perhaps charm wasn't the right tactic. Perhaps a more direct approach was necessary. He'd have to find a way to get Mr. Grumbles to cooperate, to see the potential of Harmony Glen, even if it meant playing hardball. He straightened his shoulders, the chill in the air no longer bothering him. He had a deal to salvage. He took a deep breath and walked back inside, the tinkling piano music now sounding like a challenge. The decision. The silence in the restaurant booth was thick enough to choke on. Mr. Grumbles chewed his steak with the enthusiasm of a condemned man eating his last meal. Alex stared at the tablecloth, the floral pattern blurring under the weight of his discomfort. He'd spent the last hour listening to Mr. Grumbles dissect everything wrong with the proposed partnership, from projected market trends to the thread count of the hotel linen. He had been determined to stay, to prove that he could handle difficult personalities, that his vision for Sterling Hotels was worth fighting for. Now, the bland taste of the overpriced water he was sipping felt like ashes in his mouth. The waiter hovered nearby, sensing the tension emanating from their table like heat from a furnace. Alex waved him away with a tight smile. He needed a moment, just a moment, to gather the tattered remnants of his resolve. Mr. Grumbles finally swallowed, the sound amplified in the oppressive quiet. So, Sterling, he began, his voice a gravelly rasp. You still think this venture is worth pursuing, considering the obvious flaws? Alex looked up, meeting Mr. Grumble's skeptical gaze. He saw not a partner, not a collaborator, but a man entrenched in negativity, a man who saw problems where Alex saw possibilities. And in that moment, the weight lifted, the knot in his stomach loosened. No, Mr. Grumbles, Alex said, his voice surprisingly steady. I don't. The older man's eyebrows shot up, disappearing beneath his comb-over. You don't? No, Alex repeated, a surge of relief washing over him. I'm canceling the deal. Mr. Grumbles sputtered, a piece of steak flying from his mouth. He dabbed at his chin with a napkin, his face turning a mottled red. Canceling? After all this time? All the negotiations? Yes. I realize now that trust is paramount. And I don't trust you, Mr. Grumbles. I don't believe you share my vision for Sterling Hotels. I need a partner who's as excited about the future as I am, not someone who's constantly picking apart the present. Alex pushed back his chair, the legs scraping against the polished floor. I appreciate your time, Mr. Grumbles, but I think it's best if we part ways here. He stood, leaving a stunned Mr. Grumbles gaping at him across the table. Alex strode out of the restaurant, the oppressive atmosphere instantly replaced by the bustling energy of the hotel lobby. The grand chandelier glittered overhead, casting a warm glow on the plush carpets and the impeccably dressed guests milling about. He took a deep breath, the air filled with the faint scent of lilies and expensive cologne. It felt good to be out of that suffocating booth. He walked towards the reception desk, his mind already racing with possibilities. He'd have to call his team, explain the situation. There would be fallout, of course, but he knew he'd made the right decision. He paused by a potted palm, pulling out his phone. The screen flickered to life, displaying a missed call from his assistant. He ignored it for now, needing a moment to compose himself. He turned and saw Mr. Grumbles approaching, his face a mask of incredulity and simmering anger. Sterling, Just a moment, he called, his voice cutting through the lobby chatter. Alex sighed inwardly and met him halfway. You can't just cancel, Mr. Grumbles said, his voice low and menacing. This is a binding agreement. Not anymore, Alex replied calmly. My lawyers will be in touch. There are clauses. I assure you, I'm well within my rights. But the money, Mr. Grumbles sputtered. The potential is meaningless without trust, Alex said firmly. I wish you well, Mr. Grumbles. He turned and walked away, leaving Mr. Grumbles standing there, speechless. He imagined the older man's face, red and contorted with rage, and a small smile played on his lips. He had canceled the deal, and it felt liberating. Word travels fast. Mr. Grumbles watched from behind the lace curtains of his parlor window as the dusty blue taxi coughed and sputtered its way down Harmony Glen's Main Street, disappearing around the bend towards the highway. Good riddance, he muttered to himself, adjusting his spectacles. The young whippersnapper, with his fancy card and even fancier expectations, was more trouble than he was worth. He'd probably be back in the city, flashing his wealth and causing a ruckus before supper. He harumphed and returned to his crossword puzzle, determined to forget the whole unpleasant episode. But the ink seemed to bleed on the page, and the clues danced tauntingly before his eyes. He couldn't shake the image of the young man's face, the fleeting flicker of hurt before it hardened into that icy professional mask. Blast it all, he thought. Perhaps he'd been a tad too harsh. But a principle was a principle, and he wasn't about to bend for some high-flying city slicker. Meanwhile, Miss Lily Bloom, her cheeks flushed a permanent shade of rose, bustled about the general store, tried to maintain a semblance of order amidst the morning rush. The aroma of freshly baked bread usually calmed her, but today, a knot of anxiety tightened in her stomach. The taxi driver, a garrulous fellow named Earl, had stopped by to pick up a forgotten phone charger, and naturally, the tale of Mr. Grumbles, well, his inflexibility had spilled out along with the morning gossip. Imagine, Earl had boomed, loud enough for half the store to hear. The poor fella, stranded out here with nothing but the clothes on his back and that fancy card, said Mr. Grumbles, just about laughed him out of the place. Now, Mrs. Abernathy, known for her prize-winning pies and even more potent gossip, cornered Miss Lily near the canned peaches. Lily, dear, is it true? Did Silas really turn away that nice young man? Her eyes, sharp as tacks, bored into Miss Lily's soul. Miss Lily wrung her hands, the flour dusting her apron like a guilty coating. Well, Mrs. Abernathy, there was a misunderstanding. The young man, Mr. Alex, had some trouble with his payment. Mr. Grumbles, he just follows the rules, you know. Rules? Mrs. Abernathy's voice rose an octave. There's rules, and then there's common decency. That boy looked like he needed help, and Silas just slammed the door in his face. Shameful, Lily, simply shameful. The news spread like wildfire. By lunchtime, the story had been embellished with each retelling. Mr. Grumbles had not only refused the young man's service, but had also allegedly called him a city rat and threatened him with a broom. The ladies' auxiliary meeting, usually a cheerful affair filled with knitting needles and gentle chatter, buzzed with indignation. Even old Mrs. Higgins, who rarely spoke above a whisper, muttered about Mr. Grumbles' stone heart. At the hardware store, Hank, the owner, leaned against the counter, polishing a wrench. He's getting worse in his old age, he said to a customer browsing screws. Remember when Mrs. Peterson's barn burned down? Wouldn't donate a single plank of wood until she signed a promissory note. That's Silas for you. The whispers followed Mr. Grumbles as he ventured out for his afternoon stroll. He could feel the sideways glances, the thinly veiled disapproval. Even Martha, the usually cheerful postmistress, gave him a curt nod and a pursed-lip smile. He tried to ignore it, attributing it to the fickle nature of small-town gossip. But the unease gnawed at him, a persistent itch he couldn't scratch. He quickened his pace, seeking the solace of his quiet, predictable home. But even within those familiar walls, the silence seemed to amplify the unspoken condemnation. He knew, with a sinking feeling, that this wouldn't be easily forgotten. Word, indeed, traveled fast in Harmony Glen, and it rarely traveled in his favor. A new opportunity. Alex scrubbed furiously at a stubborn patch of flour clinging to the counter. The rhythmic motion a small comfort in the face of the morning's awkwardness. He could practically feel the weight of Mrs. Higgins' glare boring into the back of his skull, even though she was supposedly busy arranging blueberry muffins. Each clatter of a baking sheet, each over-enunciated greeting to a customer, seemed to carry a silent accusation. He just wanted to disappear. "Morning, Alex." He nearly jumped out of his skin. Ms. Daisy Sunshine, the bakery's owner, stood beaming at him, her apron dusted with powdered sugar and her smile as warm as a freshly baked pie. "Everything all right?" she asked, her brow furrowing slightly. "Fine, Miss Sunshine," he mumbled, avoiding eye contact. "Just busy." She didn't press. Instead, she perched on a stool, her floral dress a splash of color in the otherwise utilitarian kitchen. "I've been meaning to talk to you about something," she began, her voice taking on a more serious tone. Alex braced himself. Was this it? Was he about to be fired? He couldn't afford to lose this job, not when he was determined to help Harmony Glen. "Okay," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I've been watching you, Alex," she continued, "and I've been impressed. You're a hard worker, you learn quickly, and you clearly care about this town." He finally met her gaze, surprised by the genuine sincerity he saw there. "Harmony Glen is struggling," Miss Sunshine sighed, her cheerful demeanor momentarily fading. "The mill closing hit us hard, and a lot of folks are hurting. I've been trying to think of ways to help, things we can do to bring some life back into this place." Alex listened intently, a flicker of hope igniting within him. He had been feeling so helpless, so isolated in his attempts to make a difference. "I have some ideas," she said, her eyes twinkling again. "But I need someone on the ground, someone who understands the community and isn't afraid to roll up their sleeves." She paused, her gaze locking with his. "Alex, I'd like you to become my community outreach coordinator. It would mean less time in the bakery, maybe just weekends, and more time working on projects that benefit Harmony Glen. We could organize food drives, offer baking classes for kids, partner with local farmers for ingredients, maybe even start a small business incubator." Alex stared at her, speechless. This was unexpected and perfect. It was an opportunity to use his skills and resources to help the town in a tangible way, without the constraints and complications of his previous disastrous attempts. He could leverage Ms. Sunshine's reputation and connections, working within the existing fabric of the community instead of trying to impose his own solutions. I don't know what to say, Miss Sunshine," he stammered. "That sounds incredible. But are you sure? I mean, after this morning." He gestured vaguely, mortified. Miss Sunshine chuckled, a warm, reassuring sound. "Honey, everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what you do next. And I believe you're someone who wants to do good. Besides," she added with a wink, "I trust my gut, and my gut tells me you're the right person for this." A wave of relief washed over him, so potent it almost brought him to his knees. "I accept," he said, his voice firm. "I would be honored." Miss Sunshine beamed. "Wonderful. I knew I could count on you. Now let's talk details." She pulled a well-worn notebook from her apron pocket, its pages filled with scribbled notes and crossed-out ideas. "First thing, the annual Harmony Glen Fall Festival is coming up. We need to make it bigger and better than ever." As Miss Sunshine outlined her vision, Alex listened with growing excitement. He could already see the possibilities, the potential for change. This wasn't just a job. It was a chance to redeem himself, to prove that he was more than just a disgraced CEO with a guilty conscience. It was a chance to finally belong. Sunshine and success. The aroma of yeast and sugar hung heavy in the air, a constant reminder of Alex's mortification. He stood awkwardly beside Ms. Sunshine, his tailored suit feeling ridiculously out of place amidst the flour-dusted aprons and cheerful chatter of the bakery. He was a fish so far out of water he was practically on dry land, gasping for breath. "Relax, Alex dear," Miss Sunshine said, her voice a gentle hum as she expertly kneaded dough. "You look like you're about to present to the board, not bake cookies." He managed a weak smile. "Easier to face a board, honestly. At least they speak my language." "Nonsense. Everyone understands the language of a warm cookie. Now, tell me about this harmony initiative you've been sketching out." For the next few hours, amidst the clatter of pans and the whir of mixers, Alex laid out his plans. He envisioned a network of small businesses, each supported by microloans and mentorship programs. He spoke of sustainable farming practices, revitalized storefronts, and community workshops. He detailed projections and ROI, forgetting for a moment the absurdity of discussing such things in a bakery. Miss Sunshine listened intently, her bright eyes twinkling. "It's a beautiful dream, Alex. But remember, numbers are just numbers. It's the people that matter." The first project was the revitalization of Harmony Glen's neglected town square. Alex secured the necessary permits, navigated local regulations, and even, surprisingly, enjoyed haggling with suppliers for the best prices on paving stones and landscaping. Miss Sunshine, meanwhile, rallied the townsfolk. She organized planning days, recruited volunteers for painting and repairs, and kept everyone fueled with her legendary cinnamon rolls. Slowly, miraculously, Harmony Glen began to bloom. The empty storefronts, once symbols of decline, buzzed with new life. A young carpenter opened a workshop, crafting intricate wooden toys. A retired teacher started a tutoring service for children. A local artist, inspired by the renewed energy, transformed a derelict building into a vibrant gallery. Even Mr. Grumbles seemed to soften, though he'd never admit it. Alex noticed him lingering by the new flower beds in the square, a grudging look of something akin to pleasure on his face. Miss Lily Bloom, on the other hand, was a whirlwind of nervous energy, torn between defending Mr. Grumble's skepticism and embracing the town's burgeoning optimism. One evening, as Alex sat on a newly installed bench in the square, watching children play under the soft glow of the streetlights, Miss Sunshine joined him. "Look around, Alex," she said, her voice filled with warmth. "You did this." He shook his head. "We did this. You showed me that trust and kindness are more powerful than any balance sheet." "And you," she countered, "showed everyone that even the most jaded heart can be touched." Mr. Grumbles even bought a pot of geraniums for his window box. Alex chuckled. The transformation of Harmony Glen was more than just economic. It was a shift in mindset, a rediscovery of community spirit. New jobs were created, yes, but more importantly, hope was rekindled. People were talking to each other, helping each other, believing in each other. He thought back to that disastrous hotel encounter, the canceled deal, the mocking laughter. He realized now that he'd been chasing the wrong kind of success. He'd been so focused on accumulating wealth that he'd forgotten the true value of human connection. The air was filled with the sweet scent of honeysuckle and the joyful sounds of children playing. For the first time in a long time, Alex felt a genuine sense of peace. The sunshine of Harmony Glen, he realized, was far more valuable than any black card.